Today, when we think of Palestine, images of conflict and unrest often come to mind. The struggle between the Palestinians and Israelis is something we frequently see in the news, with stories of violence, protests and deep divisions. But to understand why this conflict exists, we need to go back over 100 years to a letter that changed everything. Now, this letter, called the Balfour Declaration, played a key role in shaping the long and difficult history between these two states. Though it was only a short letter, it became the starting point for a story of broken promises, clashing dreams, and the search for a home that still continues today. It was November 2, 1917, during World War I, when Britain was fighting a tough battle and desperately looking for ways to win. Arthur James Balfour, Britain's Foreign Secretary at the time, wrote a letter to a wealthy and influential man named Lord Rothschild, a supporter of the Zionist movement. The Zionists wanted to create a homeland for Jewish people in Palestine, which held religious and historical importance for Jews. In his letter, Balfour expressed the British government's support for his idea. And he wrote, and I quote, "His Majesty's government views with favour the establishment in Palestine of a national home for the Jewish people and will use their best efforts to facilitate the achievement of this object." For the Jewish community, this letter was seen as a hopeful promise. But for the Arab people living in Palestine, it was the start of a painful journey of displacement and uncertainty. The Balfour Declaration didn't happen just because of sympathy for the Jewish cause. There were also political reasons. During World War I, Britain needed more support, especially from Jews in the United States and Russia, and they believed backing Zionism would help. Additionally, many British leaders, including Balfour, were Christian Zionists, which means they believed that Jewish people should return to their ancient homeland as mentioned in the Bible. This religious belief, along with the political benefits, pushed Britain to make this promise. A Jewish leader named Chaim Weizmann played an important role in convincing Britain to support the Zionist cause. He had close connections with British politicians and was able to get them to agree to help create a Jewish homeland. The Balfour Declaration was carefully worded to avoid angering the Arab population of Palestine, who made up over 90% of the people living there. The British didn't promise to create a full Jewish state, but rather a national home. They also added a condition that the rights of the non-Jewish communities in Palestine would not be harmed. However, for many Palestinians, this promise didn't feel reassuring. They believed that their homeland was being given away to another group, even though they had been living there for generations. Conflicting promises to Arab and Jews. What made the Balfour Declaration even more controversial was that it wasn't the only promise Britain had made. Earlier in the war, Britain had promised the Arab leaders that they would help them gain independence from the Ottoman Empire, which ruled much of the Middle East, including the Palestine. In 1915, Britain had made an agreement with Sharif Hussein of Mecca, suggesting that the Arab lands would become independent after the war. But Britain was also secretly negotiating with France through the Sykes-Picot Agreement in 1916. This agreement divided the Middle East between the two powers, with Palestinians coming under British control. So, by the end of the war, Britain had made conflicting promises to the Jews, the Arabs and the French, creating a situation that was bound to lead to troubled Palestinian reactions and rising tensions. Now the Arab population in Palestine felt betrayed by the Balfour Declaration. They had hoped for independence, but instead they saw Jewish immigration increasing rapidly under British rule. By the 1920s, tensions between Jews and the Arabs were on the rise. Clashes began to happen, leading to riots and protests, which grew worse as the time went on. The Balfour Declaration did not bring peace to the Palestine. Instead, it marked the beginning of a conflict that still exists today. In 1948, after decades of growing tensions, the State of Israel was created and hundreds and thousands of Palestinians were displaced from their homes and what is known as the Nakba or catastrophe. Between 1947 and 1949, at least 750,000 Palestinians from a 1.9 million population were made refugees beyond the borders of the state. Zionist forces had taken more than 78% of historic Palestine, ethnically cleansed and destroyed about 530 villages and cities, and killed about 15,000 Palestinians in a series of mass atrocities, including more than 70 massacres. Even today, Palestinians continue to fight for their rights, while Israelis see the Balfour Declaration as a key moment in creation of their state. The struggle over land, home, and the identity that began with a simple letter in 1917 remains at the heart of the Palestinian-Israeli conflict. The Balfour Declaration's legacy lives on, and not as a distant memory but as a part of the ongoing conflict that shapes the lives of millions in Palestine, Israel, and beyond. The echoes of that letter continue to impact the present in a land promised to two different people, but never fully belonging to the either. For more latest news and updates, and for more stories like this, subscribe to Daily Salah Digital.